Well, it's been a month or more since I've been able to get to the Ninja 250. We had an oil leak from the left side cover, and we were afraid it was a crankshaft main seal, but it turned out to simply be these little rubber plugs here that seal the wires that come out of the alternator and the ignition sensor. And both of these things are aftermarket replacements, and they were put in not very carefully by an independent shop. And it took me a good hour, a good solid hour to clean up these surfaces so that they could accept some sealant and seal. Now, what I found is that these are not really made to the proper size, and you can see the amount of play in there, both sideways and this way. The grooves are bigger than the slots that they fit in by quite a bit. You can see how much bigger they are, and that's true of both of them. And so the question obviously is, how does anybody expect these things to hold the oil back when they don't fit tightly in there? The answer is, of course, that they didn't. So I think this goes the other way. So you can see how much slop there is there. So that has to have sealant to keep it from leaking. And the other problem is, when you look at the total height of this, it's below the level of the, my lens is fogging up, below the level of the seal here. So it's got to have a dollop of RTV on here as well, because it can't be physically compressed because it's not quite thick enough. So the tools we used for this job were a pair of magnifying glasses, a good bright light, some fine needle nose pliers, a little screwdriver, and most importantly, a nice, clean, sharp new razor blade or something similar. They had used some kind of sealant in here, but they hadn't cleaned the metal properly, so it hadn't adhered well. And it was starting to flake off inside, which is not good. So, and then I don't know what they'd put on this gasket surface, but it looked like with some silver shit, and had to scrape all that off and clean this both with solvent, and then after this with mineral spirit solvent, which this is the only way you can buy it in California now, and then after that with acetone to make sure that there was no residue of the mineral spirits left, so that I've got something that can actually glue to. And these little rubber seals, they had to be physically cleaned, both with a razor blade and by scraping gently, and with the mineral spirits, and then with the acetone. And the same with the wires and the shields. And you've got to get all of the oil out of the inside of here, otherwise it's going to drain down in here where you're trying to work, and screw up your sealant. So now the deal is going to be that I have to take my new gasket. Let me turn this camera off a minute. I have to take my new gasket and put it on the cover, and I have to put the sealant in here and on the top, and then put it on the bike before the RTV sets up. and cinch it down so that it compresses and squeezes out the gaps and fills the gaps. So that's all going to be fun. That's the next step. But everything's got to be scrupulously clean. I got to go and clean the oops, got it covered with a paper towel. But I got to clean the engine case similarly with solvent and acetone. Make sure that's nice and clean. And I don't know if I'm going to put anything on that gasket at all, except in this spot right here. I'll put a dollop on top so that it will seal the space between the gasket and the top of these rubber plugs, because they're not going to compress properly. It was really not a good situation. I think if I'd had the original parts and not they hadn't used these aftermarket parts, it probably would have been better, but you never know. So we got to clean the gasket surface here with a razor blade, and then with acetone. What I'm going to do is smear a very light coating of grease on the yeah, no, maybe I will, maybe I won't. Look down here. Maybe I'll smear a very light coating of grease on the engine case side, but I'm not going to do it on the cover because I'm going to be using the RTV silicone to seal those rubber gaskets, and I don't want any grease near that. So they seal against the gasket, and then the gasket seals against the engine case. Okay, I'm putting an excess of RTV silicone in the grooves of this rubber plug, so that when it fits down over the slots, it will have enough goop there to seal. Okay, so now you can see that it has squished out all the way around to make an oil-tight seal there. Now we're going to put another layer on here and put the second rubber plug in there. So I'm going to put a layer between the two rubber plugs. Okay, so you can see that it's squished out around all the seams here, and that's what we want. I haven't tried to clean up any of the excess, and not sure how much I'm going to clean up, but I'm going to put a layer across the top here and put the gasket down, because I think that it's the plugs are not quite as fat as they should be. I don't think they'll compress properly, so I'm going to give it a little extra goop. So there we are, the gasket on, and that's what it looks like on the inside. I'm going to leave that excess. It's going to have a couple of days to dry, and I think it's safer to do that than anything else. I think if I try to start smearing that around, I may just mess it up. So anyway, we've got the cover back on and sealed up. And the water pump cover back on, it's just got an O-ring on it, not a paper gasket, so that's no big deal. Got this water pipe here cinched back up again. A little bit of clearance between the sharp end of this hose clamp and this vacuum line, so hopefully we'll be good. I'm going to let this thing sit for 24 to 48 hours before I put any oil in it. I left myself a big clob of this RTV sealant, and I'm going to let that sit 24 to 48 hours. And when I see that that's absolutely solidified and solid, then I'll put oil back in the bike.